Look at this family photo, same parents, same house, same DNA, but one looks Chinese, one looks Polynesian, one looks Latino. Why? One sibling with Chinito eyes, another with Mestizo features, one Moreno, one with curly hair, one with straight, same parents, same family, but they look like they're from completely different countries. If you've ever wondered why your sibling looks Chinese while you look Mexican, or why some Filipinos look Pacific Islander while others look East Asian, science finally has the answer. It comes down to 3 major migration waves that happened over 50,000 years. And depending on which waves your ancestors came from, that determines how you look today. This is the genetic story written on Filipino faces. Let me start with the question every Filipino has heard. Where are you from? No, where are you really from? Because Filipino faces are incredibly diverse. In Japan, people assume we're Japanese. In Mexico, they think we're Mexican. In Hawaii, they think we're Hawaiian. We don't fit into neat categories. And that's not an accident, that's genetics. Filipinos have one of the most complex genetic profiles in Asia. And a new understanding of Philippine migration history explains why we look so different from each other. Here's the basic framework. Modern Filipinos are the result of at least 3 major migration waves, plus centuries of additional mixing. Wave 1. The Negritos who arrived over 50,000 years ago. Wave 2, the Austronesians who arrived around 5,000 years ago. Wave 3, traders and colonizers over the past 2,000 years, including Chinese, Indian, Spanish, and other Asian groups. Each wave brought different physical characteristics: dark skin versus lighter skin, curly hair versus straight hair, broad features versus narrow features, and because these waves mixed differently in different regions and different families, Filipino appearances vary dramatically. But here's what makes this fascinating. It's not just that Filipinos as a group look diverse, it's that within single families, siblings can inherit completely different combinations of these ancestral genes. That's why your brother might have Chinito eyes from the Austronesian and Chinese waves, while you have broader features from the Negrito wave. And understanding this isn't just about science, it's about identity. Because every Filipino who's been told they don't look Filipino enough, or who's been asked what they're mixed with, deserves to know that there's no single Filipino look. The diversity is the identity. Let's break down Wave 1, the Negritos. These were among the first modern humans to leave Africa and settle in Southeast Asia. They arrived in what is now the Philippines over 50,000 years ago, possibly as early as 60 or 70,000 years ago. Anthropologists call them Negritos, a Spanish term meaning little black people, though that name is problematic. In the Philippines, these groups include the Aeta, the Aeta, the Batak, and other indigenous communities. Genetically, Negritos are distinct. They have dark skin, tightly curled hair, broader noses, and stockier builds. These are adaptations to tropical climates. Dark skin protects against UV radiation. Curly hair provides insulation while allowing heat to escape from the scalp. For tens of thousands of years, Negritos were the only humans in the Philippines. They were hunter-gatherers. They developed deep knowledge of the forests, the coasts, the rivers. They had their own languages, cultures, and ways of life, and their DNA is still present in modern Filipinos. Studies show that most Filipinos carry some Negrito ancestry. If you have darker skin, curly or wavy hair, broader facial features, or a stocky build, there's a good chance you inherited more genetic markers from this first wave. And this isn't ancient history that disappeared. Negrito communities still exist in the Philippines today. The Aeta in Zambales, the Ati in Panay, the Batak in Palawan. They're living descendants of the first Filipinos. Before we go deeper, our goal on this video is to get 500 likes, and share your thoughts in the comments right now. I read every single one. Then came Wave 2, the Austronesians. Around 5,000 years ago, a major migration began from Taiwan. These were seafaring agricultural people. They brought farming, pottery, and advanced boat-building technology, and they brought different physical characteristics. Austronesians typically have lighter brown skin, straight black hair, almond-shaped eyes, and slighter builds compared to Negritos. They're the genetic ancestors of most Pacific Islanders, including Polynesians, Micronesians, and the indigenous peoples of Indonesia and Malaysia. When Austronesians arrived in the Philippines, they didn't replace the Negritos. They intermarried. Over thousands of years, their genes mixed, and this created the foundation of what we think of as the classic Filipino appearance. Medium brown skin, straight or slightly wavy hair, almond eyes, a mix of features from both waves. But here's where it gets more complex. The Austronesian migration wasn't uniform. Different groups settled in different islands at different times. Some islands had more Negrito presence, others had more Austronesian. And this created regional variations that still exist today. For example, people from northern Luzon, especially Ilocanos, tend to have more Austronesian features: lighter skin, straighter hair, almond eyes. That's because northern areas had more direct Austronesian settlement and less Negrito mixing. Meanwhile, people from the Visayas and Mindanao often have more balanced mixing. You see the full range: dark skin, light skin, curly hair, straight hair, all in the same region. Now here's the third wave, and this is where it gets really diverse. Over the past 2,000 years, the Philippines became a major trading hub. Chinese traders came regularly, Indian merchants arrived, Arab traders from the Middle East, and then came 300 years of Spanish colonization, followed by American occupation. Each group left genetic markers. Chinese ancestry is probably the most significant of these later additions. For over 1,000 years, Chinese merchants traded with Philippine kingdoms. Many settled permanently. They married local women. Their descendants became part of Filipino society. Today, an estimated 20 to 30% of Filipinos have some Chinese ancestry. If you have lighter skin, epicanthic eye folds the fold that creates monolids, or straight black hair, you likely have Chinese genetic contributions. Spanish colonization also added European genes, though less than people think. Spanish colonizers numbered only in the tens of thousands over 3 centuries. But they were the elite. They had access to resources and often multiple families. So while Spanish DNA is a small percentage of the overall Filipino gene pool, it's visible. If you have lighter skin, a higher nose bridge, wavy hair, or colored eyes, that might be Spanish ancestry. And this created the Mestizo category, Filipinos with visible European features. But here's the important point: even Mestizo Filipinos are still predominantly Austronesian and Negrito. The Spanish genes are a small addition to a much larger genetic base. Indian, Arab, and other Asian ancestries also exist in smaller amounts. Indian traders came to the Philippines during the Indianized kingdoms period, between the 5th and 15th centuries. They brought gold, textiles, and culture. Some settled. Arab traders came through the spice trade and spread Islam in Mindanao and Sulu. Their genetic contributions are smaller but real, and this is why some Filipinos have features that don't fit the typical categories. A particular nose shape, a specific eye structure, a certain skin tone, it's all part of the mix. So here's the synthesis. Modern Filipinos are primarily Austronesian and Negrito, with smaller percentages of Chinese, European, and other Asian ancestries. But the percentages vary wildly between individuals. One person might be 70% Austronesian, 20% Negrito, and 10% Chinese. Their sibling might be 50% Austronesian, 30% Negrito, 15% Chinese, and 5% Spanish. Same parents, different genetic combinations, and this is why Filipino siblings can look so different. Let me explain the genetic lottery. When parents have children, each child randomly inherits 50% of their DNA from each parent. But which specific 50% is random? Imagine your mother has genes from all three waves, Austronesian, Negrito, Chinese, and your father also has genes from all three waves. You might inherit more of your mother's Austronesian genes and your father's Negrito genes. Your sibling might inherit more of your mother's Chinese genes and your father's Austronesian genes. Same parents, different mix. And because physical traits like skin color, hair texture, and facial features are controlled by multiple genes, small changes in which genes you inherit create big changes in appearance. This is why you see Filipino families where one child looks East Asian, another looks Pacific Islander, and another looks Latino. They're all expressing different parts of the same family gene pool. And this isn't unusual. This is how Filipino genetics work. The diversity isn't a bug, it's a feature. It's the result of 50,000 years of migration, mixing, and island geography that created isolated populations that later reconnected. Now let's talk about regional patterns, because geography shaped genetics. The Philippines has over 7,000 islands. For thousands of years, travel between islands was limited. This created genetic drift. Different islands developed slightly different genetic profiles. Northern Luzon, especially the Ilocos region, has more East Asian features. But here's what I want to emphasize. None of these variations make someone more or less Filipino. There's no pure Filipino look, because Filipinos have always been a mix. The mixing started 50,000 years ago when Negritos first arrived. It continued 5,000 years ago when Austronesians came. It accelerated over the past 2,000 years with trade and colonization. And it continues today. Filipinos marry people from all over the world. The mix keeps evolving. And that's beautiful. Let me address colorism because it's relevant here. Filipino society has a complicated relationship with skin color. Lighter skin is often considered more attractive or higher status. This is a colonial legacy. Spanish and American colonizers created social hierarchies based on skin tone. Lighter skin meant higher class. Darker skin meant lower class. And that mentality persists today. But genetics doesn't support this. Dark skin is Negrito and Austronesian. Light skin is also Austronesian plus Chinese and Spanish. Both are authentically Filipino. The genetic science says all skin tones are equally Filipino. The preference for lighter skin is cultural, not biological. And understanding the three migration waves helps dismantle that bias, because it shows that dark skin isn't somehow less Filipino. It's the original Filipino. Now let's talk about celebrities, because they're great examples of Filipino diversity. Manny Pacquiao. Dark skin, broader features, stocky build. That's more Negrito and Austronesian. Ann Curtis. Light skin, narrow features, tall. That's more Austronesian with Spanish ancestry. Vanessa Hudgens, who's half Filipino. Mixed features showing the Austronesian and European blend. Bretman Rock, the Filipino-Hawaiian influencer. Pacific Islander features with Filipino-Austronesian roots. Bruno Mars, also half Filipino, shows how the Austronesian genes connect Filipinos to other Pacific populations. Each of these people looks completely different, but they're all Filipino or part Filipino, and that range is normal. Or look at random Filipino families. I've seen families where one daughter has light skin and looks like she could be from Spain. Her brother has dark skin and looks Polynesian. Their other sibling has Chinito eyes and could pass for Korean. Same parents, same house, completely different appearances. And when foreigners see Filipino families, they're often confused. They ask, "Are you all related?" Yes. It's just genetics. Here's another angle. Why do Filipinos often get mistaken for other ethnicities? In Mexico, Filipinos are assumed to be Mexican. Why? Because Austronesian and indigenous American features overlap. Almond eyes, brown skin, straight black hair. Plus, there was actual historical connection. The Manila-Acapulco galleon trade for 250 years meant Filipinos and Mexicans interacted. Some Filipinos settled in Mexico. Some Mexicans came to the Philippines, so there's both genetic and cultural overlap. In Hawaii, Filipinos blend in with other Pacific Islanders because we're all Austronesian. Same genetic family. Polynesians, Micronesians, and Filipinos share ancient ancestors. The boats that settled Hawaii 5,000 years ago came from the same Austronesian migration that settled the Philippines.